Hello, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this virtual presentation and a look ahead to the 2022 junior rugby season. My name is Miles Spencer, CEO of Rugby Ontario. Our team here at Rugby Ontario is very pleased to be in the position to discuss community and provincial rugby once again, and we hope this session will be a great resource in your own season planning. After what has been an incredibly challenging time for our sport over the course of the past 2 years, it is great to be working with our member club and branch stakeholders as we prepare for the return of rugby this season. In the past year, we've continued to take steps to ensure a safe return to play following each and every wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our greatest priority has been to ensure our members have been positioned to facilitate as much rugby as possible, despite various public health measures and restrictions. Now, as we look ahead, it is with great excitement that Rugby Ontario has just announced its new strategic plan following a robust review and planning process throughout all of 2021. Through the many community engagement sessions, town halls, and surveys, our team has taken considerable amount of feedback and insight under advisement to inform the planning of junior programming at the community club and provincial levels. We've spent the past few months reaching out to our members to consult on league structures, schedules, event planning, and provincial programming. And with that, we're in the process of establishing what Rugby Ontario will call a one calendar framework. Over the coming weeks, we will continue to work on this season calendar as other programming is confirmed, layering in all levels of play to offer a single detailed view of the season ahead. Now, I'd like to turn things over to our team to present an overview of junior leagues and provincial programming for this summer.
Hey everybody, this is Mark, the Competitions and Events Coordinator at Rugby Ontario. As part of this presentation, we'll take a quick look at kind of the Junior League's overview for 2022, some reminders and refreshers, and as we build towards this new season coming out of the pandemic. So starting with the U14s, as was the case previously, just looking to bridge that gap between U12 and U16 and high school rugby. We'll have scores recorded, but no league standings for that, and main focus is some regional round robins and triangular fixture games on Sunday. As we have done in the past, looking to do some crossover tournaments mid-season as well to give some variety and competition, and that league will wrap up with a participation finale tournament on August 20th, which all teams are invited to participate in. For U16s and U18s, traditional format, weekly games against regional opponents. Standings will be kept for each region, and post-qualification playoffs, the top 8 teams from each age grade will make their way to Junior Cup Day to go for provincial finals. As a reminder, we strongly encourage teams to implement the half a game rule to find balance for all the participants on their team and make sure that everyone is enjoying the sport of rugby that we all love so much. And to help with that, all junior leagues will run rolling subs to allow for implementation of the half game rule and more flexibility when it comes to that.
Thanks, Mark, and hi, everybody. My name is Sean Medeiros. I'm the manager of provincial and high performance programming here at Rugby Ontario. Similar to what Mark has done, I will be providing an overview of the provincial rugby landscape for the summer ahead and highlighting some critical shifts in the delivery of programming. If we start by looking back and reflecting on programming prior to the pandemic, specifically from 2017 through to 2019, Rugby Ontario really explored a few different models of provincial programming delivery, those being the regional model and the AA and AAA model of provincial development. Now, while both programs certainly have their pros and cons, what we've really endeavored to take on through the pandemic and even before that was a thorough feedback process and engaging with various stakeholders, including players, staff, coaches, club members, alumni, et cetera, to better understand the wants and needs of the clubs and of the provincial players themselves. And through this process, what has been determined is that moving forward through the 2022 season and beyond, the Ontario Blues will be implementing a hybrid, or what we're calling a balanced model of provincial development. And while we'll certainly get into some of the details and nuances on this program as we progress through this presentation and take you through the summer chronologically from May through until August, we can provide some of these highlights and details initially. Now, some of the general points of feedback through this process that really were highlighted came through as competition, scheduling, development, and price point. And these are certainly areas that we feel are addressed through this new model of delivery and through some of the major shifts that have been made to the program itself. If we look at some of these major adjustments, a few things to note and highlight. The first being enhanced alignment between the provincial rugby program, the Ontario Blues, and the EORU high performance program itself. Now, while in the West and Central, the Ontario Blues will directly oversee and control the provincial programming, we will be partnering with the EORU to aid in the delivery of regional programming in Eastern Ontario to best serve the athletes in that region. Rugby Ontario and the Ontario Blues will be providing technical and tactical direction and professional development to coaches in the region, as well as additional resources to help aid in the delivery of that program, but still giving the EORU autonomy to run the program that they identify as best serving their region. From a training and selection standpoint, the EORU themselves will oversee the development and scheduling of all programming to avoid conflict with club rugby in the region. And we will work together from a competition standpoint to ensure equality and opportunity for selection through competition into national age grade pathways. Some other critical shifts to programming include an earlier start to the provincial program itself. So starting the identification process now in May. This is something we're really excited about, as we think it will give us a great opportunity to help promote the transition of players from high school into club rugby and through into provincial programming. This will also increase the scope of the initial player identification and selection window, leading to a more robust process ahead of the provincial program. From a selection standpoint, players will not be selected based on regional boundaries. The top players, as identified through the selection process, will be selected to the provincial program, and from there, regional teams will then be established. We feel this will help to reduce the amount of travel required for players across the province and really eliminate that potential barrier to participation, while still ensuring a high quality and high performance environment for players involved in the provincial program. Another critical shift that has been central and forefront to development of the schedule has been a strong alignment between club and provincial competition. This is something that has been consistent throughout the development of this program, and something that is really evidenced by the last point here in the condensing of the provincial window. The final point noting that the provincial summer program will end in July with no program running in August. This means that the cross-border series hosted at the University of Guelph will represent the final culmination of the provincial window, with some touring games occurring in and around that date as well, but all provincial programming ending for the summer at the end of July, leaving August open for club rugby and further identification opportunities for provincial programming that will lead into the fall after club rugby has culminated.
Awesome, thanks, Sean. As we move forward, as Sean mentioned, we will start to look through the summer kind of chronologically from May to August to give everyone a sense of what's going on in each individual month. In this case, starting with May, obviously, for the U16s and U18s, something that we'd look to do in 2020, but were unable to do due to the pandemic, was start some preseason exhibition tournaments, potentially TENS tournaments, depending on number of people and clubs engaged. So the hope there and the rationale is just to get players start to register early. Opportunity for those without high school rugby to start getting engaged in the club from an earlier point and not waiting till June and July to do so. And then for those teams that didn't qualify for OFSA from a high school perspective, get some more game time for those athletes, and again, get them into the club early. These will be weekend tournaments, looking at scheduling them 1 week before and 1 week after the long weekend in May, and see what kind of engagement we can get from clubs and players, and hopefully kick off the season in a really positive way there. For U14s, as we've done traditionally, starting the weekend after the long weekend, similar, as I mentioned earlier, round robin and triangular fixtures. Just something to note for clubs that maybe don't have access to their fields yet, or aren't ready from a registration numbers perspective. Attendance isn't mandatory for all rounds. Again, this is a developmental league, and we just want to see as many people playing as we can. And clubs can begin their season when it works for them and for their members.
Picking up on the provincial program, as I mentioned previously, May will represent the identification and selection window primarily for the provincial programs. So here we'll run 6 ID and development sessions. All of these sessions will be run, or sorry, 4 of these sessions will be run regionally. So simultaneously in the West and Central to make it more accessible to athletes coming in from a distance. We'll then have 2 centralized sessions where all of the athletes will gather in one centralized session. So one will be held in the West, one will be held in the Central, and this will essentially just provide an opportunity for coaches to assess the entire demographic of athletes and compare athletes as a whole. All ID sessions are going to be held on Sunday throughout May, again, to avoid any potential conflict with club programming that's running during that period. In addition to our ID and development sessions, we'll also be hosting 2 high school tournaments that will be held during the week. And again, this is just a further opportunity for provincial coaches to assess the player pool, identify athletes in high school, help to promote transition of athletes from high school into club rugby and through into provincial rugby, and really just round out the identification and selection process across the province.
As we look ahead into June from a club rugby perspective, you'll see the dates there for season starts for U18 and U16. So post OFSA, U18s round 1 to start on June 8th is the plan. U16 similarly that same week would be June 11th. And throughout the month of June, the one kind of difference from playing on Saturdays is for U16 is a makeup game for Canada Day, in which case it would be on Thursday, June 30th, to allow for clubs to still get all of their necessary games in for the season. U14 continues as per normal for Sundays throughout the month of June, and that just runs as per normal.
And again, from a provincial standpoint, so as we get into June, this is when the selection process will culminate. So we'll then move from identification development sessions into training sessions. So similar to May and consistent with the rest of the provincial program, all training sessions will be held on Sundays. And during this time frame, we'll be focusing on training regionally again to reduce the barrier of travel and transportation for athletes. And this will primarily be an opportunity to further develop players within their identified team for the summer. And that'll consist of training sessions as well as inter-squad games.
As we transition into the July part of the calendar, a few things to note from a schedule perspective. U18s, there is a switch from a game that are primarily on Wednesdays onto a Monday night. And similarly in the U16 age categories, moving 2 games from Saturdays onto 2 games on Sundays, as well as a makeup game on a Thursday for the civic holiday weekend. And those games have been shifted to allow for clubs to have their full rosters for their games during the regional part of the season in July, and also to make sure that athletes have the opportunity to participate in all their club games throughout the season. For U14s, as I mentioned earlier, crossover tournaments, as we've done in the past, we think this is a really good opportunity to give those athletes some new variety and teams to play, as well as showing kind of where they stack up across the province and developing friendships outside of their region to show the game of rugby. Traditionally as well, we're off for Canada Day weekend and the civic holiday weekend, so there will be no games on those dates.
From a provincial rugby standpoint, July represents the culmination of our summer program. So here teams will compete at the Guelph Cross-Border Series from July 13th to 16th. Now, important call out to make here, and a critical shift in the way programming has been developed in previous years, is that on the men's side of programming anyways, the competition itself will focus on athletes from U15 through to U17. Our U18 athletes will be training and competing in the U19 program, which has now become a dual age band program, meaning that U18 players themselves will not be competing at the Guelph Cross-Border Series. And on the women's side, again, we continue to operate in our dual age band approach and have U16 and U18 players competing. Now, at the competition itself, players will be engaging in competition against a number of different opponents. Here, the Central, West, and Eastern Ontario provincial teams will be competing against international sides from the US and the UK. Outside of the Guelph Cross Border Series, there's additional competition opportunities for provincial athletes to engage in touring side games. A number of teams have already extended themselves to us, and we've scheduled them into the program. Again, all these games will be scheduled so as to avoid any conflict with club competition, but adding a more robust competition element to the provincial program as well, ensuring that players have an opportunity to play multiple games in that window. Another important call out in the July window from a high performance perspective is the Ontario Summer Games itself. Now, this competition is a branch competition, and branches will be represented at the U15 and U17 level here as well. But again, working with Mark, we've avoided any direct conflicts with programming throughout the month of July.
As we look to the culmination of the junior summer season in August, we look towards qualification playoffs as well as Junior Cup Day, which is taking place on August 27th. There will be 8 regional qualifiers from each age group, so girls and boys, U16, U18, for a total of 32 teams. Those qualification playoffs will happen throughout the month of August as we build towards that day, and clubs will be fully aware of how they qualify for Junior Cup Day as we move closer. U14, we will culminate that one as well. As I mentioned, a finale wrap-up day on August 20th. This will be in conjunction with the Ontario Women's League Cup Day and the final that are taking place. All teams will be invited to participate to allow for everyone to be part of that festival at the end of the year.
Again, looking at the provincial landscape now, again, with July representing the culmination of the program for the juniors, August becomes another opportunity for player monitoring. So observing players that were previously selected and competing on the provincial team, monitoring them and their performance at the club level, as well as another talent identification opportunity to potentially observe any club standouts and players that have really emerged throughout the season, providing us an opportunity and our provincial coaches an opportunity to identify them for future selection into the fall for additional programming to run then. Looking at the scope of other programs as well. So as previously mentioned, now that the U18s are engaged in a dual age band with the U19 program, the U19 CRCs will be operating in August, running out of the University of Guelph. So some select U18 players will be engaged in that program and competing at that competition. Canada Summer Games also represents a significant competition this summer, a very exciting one that we're looking forward to hosting. Here we will have 10 U18 girls players competing and representing Ontario at these games. The games themselves are only hosting a U18 girls division, and selection for that team will be made throughout the summer leading up to this competition. So here we have a snapshot of our 2022 key junior event dates. And what this is meant to illustrate is the alignment between provincial and club programming. So as we walk through this, again, chronologically from July through to August, we start here with the cross-border series. So again, this event will be held at the University of Guelph from July 13th to 16th. There's no conflict with club programming through coordinated scheduling. The athletes competing at this event will be U15 to U17 boys and U16 and U18 girls. Looking ahead to the next major event shortly therefore after is the Ontario Summer Games, which will run in Mississauga from July 21st to 23rd. The Ontario Summer Games and the Canada Summer Games this year are sevens focused, and the Ontario Summer Games themselves are focused on branch competition. So as previously mentioned, each branch will be competing with a U15 and U17 team in both the male and female categories. And again, through aligned programming, no conflict with club scheduling. Looking at the U19 National Championship back at the University of Guelph from July 29th to August 6th. This will focus just on the U19 men's team with some U18 athletes engaged as well. As again, this is now a dual age band program. The Canada Summer Games, as we transition to August, will run from August 6th to 12th and be held at Brock University. Again, this is just a single team competing at this event in the U18 girls division. Mark, I'll turn it over to you now to speak to the club competitions.
Great, thanks, Sean. Yeah, as previously mentioned, and as we've done traditionally, there are kind of two culminating events for our junior club calendar the U14 wrap-up day and Junior Cup day as well. So as you can see, U14 wrap-up day will be on August 20th. As I mentioned, it will be in conjunction with the Ontario Women's League final. And this is a great opportunity for all teams to end the year off in a festival style. Hope to play some more crossover teams in addition to the 2 crossover tournaments that we are scheduling for earlier in the season. And then for the U16s and U18s, the provincial final, 8 teams per age grade on the August 27th for all of those who have qualified and have a chance to compete for provincial championship medals. And that wraps up our August events from a club perspective and caps off our summer in what we hope is a really good way.
And just one thing to add here too, Mark, and I think it's an important call out, is from a player welfare perspective, that's certainly something we've taken into account in the development of the greater calendar, and particularly around these key event dates. So again, as we look at this snapshot, it may appear that it's a very busy summer with a lot of club games, competitions, etc. But it is important to note the distinction in the age bands competing at each event, as well as the scope of athletes competing there, and the distinction between 15s and 7s and the associated minutes per game played. So that's certainly something we've taken into account as we've balanced out the summer to make sure that player welfare is our number one priority, and that athletes are competing in a safe environment.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch this recording. As far as next steps for the summer schedule, we plan on hosting a live Q&A on Thursday, February 24th. More details will come on that as far as a link and the exact time. If you have any questions regarding this presentation for either Sean or myself regarding HP or club, our emails are provided there for you to reach out. When you receive this recording, you also will have received this document in PDF format. And if you click on the link to view the full calendar, that will send you to a full breakdown of what the calendar looks like running from May through to August, showing which age groups are involved at which events, as well as on which dates rounds will be happening and any added information there. So hopefully that can be a good tool as you build out your club training schedule and different pieces like that. So thanks again for taking the time, and hoping that this is a useful tool and a useful recording moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.